Hello and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads. I'm coming around front of the camera right now. Today we are going to continue. Whoa, that was a close-up. Today we're going to continue in our story, A Man Called Ove. And we left off in the middle of chapter 11. And unfortunately, last video, Ove is still thinking of ways to take his own life. And again, I'm going to say, you guys, I didn't actually know this was in this story so much. And if it is something that you are considering, please, please, please reach out and speak to someone. All right? So also at the beginning of chapter 11, Ove found out that Rune may get put into a group home or something away from Anita because he is ill. And the tall woman, he calls her Weed, with the little barky dog, is standing there smiling at him, and he doesn't know why. So that's where we pick up chapter 11. As he walks up between the houses, past the bicycle shed, and into the parking area, he reluctantly admits to himself that he's walking around looking for the cat, but he can't seem to find it anywhere. He opens his garage door, unlocks the Saab, and then stands there, his hands in his pockets, for what must be in excess of half an hour. He doesn't quite know why he's doing it. He just feels that something like this requires some kind of sanctified silence before one heads off. He considers whether the paintwork of the Saab will become terribly dirty as a result of this. He supposes so. It's a pity and a shame, he realizes, but not much can be done about it. He gives the tires a couple of evaluating kicks. They're in fine order, they really are. Good for at least another 3 winters, he estimates, judging by his last kick. Which quickly reminds him about the letter in the inside pocket of his jacket, so he fishes it out to check whether he's remembered to leave instructions about the summer tires. Yes, he has. It's written here under Saab plus accessories. Summer tires in the shed. And then clear instructions that even a genuine moron could understand about where the rim bolts can be found in the trunk. Ove slides the letter back into the envelope and puts it inside the pocket of his jacket. He glances over his shoulder into the parking area. Not because he's bothered about that damn cat, obviously. He just hopes nothing's happened to it, because then there'll be hell to pay from Ove's wife. He's quite sure about that. He just doesn't want a ticking off because of that damn cat. That's all. The sirens of an approaching ambulance can be heard in the distance, but he barely takes any notice. Just gets into the driver's seat and starts the engine. Opens the back electric window a couple of inches, gets out of the car, closes the garage door, fixes the plastic tube tightly over the exhaust pipe, watches the exhaust fumes slowly bubbling out of the other end of the tube, then feeds the tube through the open back window, gets into the car, closes the door, adjusts the wing mirrors, fine-tunes the radio 1 step forward and 1 step back, leans back in the seat, closes his eyes, feels the thick exhaust smoke, cubic inch by cubic inch, filling the garage and his lungs. wasn't supposed to be like this. You work and pay off the mortgage and pay taxes and do what you should. You marry, for better or for worse, until death do us part. Wasn't that what they agreed? Ove remembers quite clearly that it was. And she wasn't supposed to be the first one to die. Wasn't it bloody well understood that it was his death they were talking about? Well, wasn't it? Ove hears a banging at the garage door. Ignores it. Straightens the creases of his trousers. Looks at himself in the rearview mirror. Wonders whether perhaps he should have put a tie on. She always liked it when he wore a tie. She looked at him then as the most handsome man in the world. He wonders if she will look at him now. If she'll be ashamed of him turning up in the afterlife unemployed and wearing a dirty suit. Will she think he's an idiot who can't even hold down an honest job without being phased out just because his knowledge has been found wanting on account of some computer? Will she still look at him the way she used to, like a man who can be relied on? A man who can take responsibility for things and fix a water heater if necessary? Will she like him as much now that he's just an old person with no purpose in the world? There's more frenetic banging at the garage door. Ove stares sourly at it. More banging. Ove thinks to himself that it's enough now. That will do, he roars and opens the door of the Saab so abruptly that the plastic tube is dislodged from between the window and the molding and falls onto the concrete floor. Clouds of exhaust fumes pour out in all directions. The pregnant foreign woman should probably have learned by now not to stand so close to doors when Ove is on the other side. But this time she can't avoid getting the garage door right in her face when Ove throws it open violently. Ove sees her and freezes. She's holding her nose, looking at him with that distinct expression of someone who just had a garage door slammed into her nose. The exhaust fumes come pouring out of the garage in a dense cloud, covering half of the parking area in a thick, nauseous mist. You have to watch out when the door's being opened, Ove manages to say. What are you doing? The pregnant one managed to bite back at him while watching the Saab with its engine idling and the exhaust spewing out of the mouth of the plastic tube on the floor. Me? Nothing, says Ove indignantly, looking as if he'd prefer to shut the garage door again. Thick red drops are forming in her nostril. She covers her face with one hand and waves at him with the other. I need a lift to the hospital, she says, tilting her head back. Ove looks skeptical. What the hell? Pull yourself together. It's just a nosebleed. She swears in something Ove assumes is Farsi and clamps the bridge of her nose hard between her thumb and index finger. Then she shakes her head impatiently, dripping blood all over her jacket. Not because of the nosebleed. Ove's a bit puzzled by that. Puts his hands in his pockets. No. Well then, she groans. Patrick fell off the ladder. She leans her head back so that Ove stands there, talking to the underside of her chin. Who's Patrick? Ove asks the chin. My husband, the chin answers. The lanky one? Asks Ove. That's him, yeah, says the chin. And he fell off the ladder? Ove clarifies. Yes, when he was opening the window. Right. When, what a bloody surprise. You could see that one coming from a mile away. The chin disappears and the large brown eyes reappear. They don't look entirely pleased. And are we going to have a debate about this or what? Ove scratches his head, slightly bothered. No, but can't you drive yourself? In a little Japanese sewing machine you arrived in the other day, he protests. I don't have a driver's license, she replies, mopping blood from her lip. What do you mean you don't have a driver's license? Asks Ove, as if her words were utterly inexplicable to him. Again, she sighs impatiently. Look, I don't have a driver's license, and that's all. What's the problem? How old are you? Asks Ove, almost fascinated now. 30, she says impatiently. 30? And no driver's license? Is there something wrong with you? She groans, holding one hand over her nose and snapping her fingers with irritation in front of Ove's face. Focus a bit, Ove. The hospital. You have to drive us to the hospital. Ove looks almost offended. What do you mean, us? You'll have to call an ambulance if the person you're married to can't open a window without falling off a ladder. I already did. They've taken him to the ambulance. But there was no space for me in the ambulance. And now, because of the snow, every taxi in town is occupied and the buses are getting bogged down everywhere. Scattered streams of blood are running down one of her cheeks. Ove clamps his jaws so hard that he starts gnashing his teeth. You can't trust bloody buses. The drivers are always drunks, he says quietly, his chin at an angle that might make someone believe he was trying to hide his words on the inside of his shirt collar. Maybe she notices the way his mood shifts as soon as she mentions the word bus. Maybe not. Anyway, she nods as if this in some way clinches it. Right then. So you have to drive us. Ove makes a courageous attempt to point threateningly at her. But to his own dismay, he feels it's not as convincing as he might have hoped. There are no have-tos around here. I'm not some bloody mobility service, he manages to say at last. But she just squeezes her index finger and thumb even harder around the bridge of her nose and nods as if she has not in any way listened to what he just said. She waves with irritation towards the garage and the plastic tube on the floor, spewing out exhaust fumes thicker and thicker against the ceiling. I don't have time to fuss about this anymore. Get things ready so we can leave. I'll go get the children. The children? Ove shouts after her without getting any kind of an answer. She's already swanned off on those tiny feet that look wholly undersized for that large pregnant bump, disappearing around the corner of the bicycle shed and down towards the houses. Ove stays where he is, as if waiting for someone to catch up with her and tell her that actually Ove had not finished talking. But no one does. He tucks his fists into his belt and throws a glance at the tube on the floor. It's actually not his responsibility if people can't manage to stay on the ladders they borrow from him. That's his own view. But of course, he can't avoid thinking about what his wife would have told him to do under the circumstances if she'd been here. And of course, it's not so difficult to work it out, Ove realizes. Sadly enough. At long last, he walks up to the car and pokes off the tube from the exhaust pipe with his shoe, gets into the Saab, checks his mirrors, puts it into first, and pulls out into the parking area. Not that he cares particularly about how the pregnant foreign woman gets to the hospital, but Ove knows very well that there'll be no end of nagging from his wife if the last thing Ove does in this life is to give a pregnant woman a nosebleed and then abandon her to take the bus. And if the gas is going to be used up anyway, he may as well give her the lift there and back. Maybe then that woman will leave him in peace, thinks Ove. But of course, she doesn't. And that is the end of chapter 11. Thank you for joining me for Mrs. Pam Reads. Oh, goodness. All right. Sometimes it's tough to get out of that chair, you know? All right, let me put my little sign up here that reminds you guys to subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and then click the bell tab so that you'll get an update when a new story posts. I am getting ready to go outside and water my garden. It's pretty sunny here. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and we will see you next time. Bye.